Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for waiting by the way. So from now on, we are going to explore the manifestation of matter. I know this sounds like a mysterious topic to a lot of people, and it's fascinating as well. And throughout the time that different people have different understanding on this topic, theology has its explanation, science and philosophy seems to understand matter a little bit different. So, how should we truly understand matter? Is there an actual answer? Well, I will start to tell you how I understand this. So, please be patient, and I'm always open to your opinion as well. You can always challenge me and discuss with me. If you have different opinion, always welcome. But before we delve into this topic, I'd like to clarify something. Because nowadays, we generally have an understanding that matter is something lower and consciousness, spirit is something higher. But through all the time, through all other episodes I made before, I believe that we can already have a more non-dual understanding. And it can be a gradual process sometimes because we get used to cleaning on those metaphysical abstract ideas, and sometimes we just feel like back to the ground, back to the earth is something lower, and it takes time for us to adjust our attitude to matter. And it's okay, it's a long journey, but I'm here and you are there, so let's accompany each other through this long way. We all know that when we say, you are such a materialistic person, it's not really a compliment. But there are differences between materialistic person and matter. Because when we say a person is materialistic, we're suggesting that this person only care about matter, material, only care about material enjoyment, and they don't really care about develop a higher understanding about the existence and all other things, morality. So it's not really a compliment. But does it mean that matter itself is something low? Of course not. We know that matter is one of the most important, fundamental, and wonderful manifestation in all the manifestations that we will discuss in later time. If your person suggests that my philosophy is just live in the present, I don't care about matter, I already transcend matter. But think about it. When you say that you live in the present, you feel the wind, you feel the rain, and you swim in the ocean, you're wandering in the forest, you see the trees, see the light. All of this requires the manifestation of matter. And it's the relationship between you and those matters brings you those wonderful feeling that you live in the present, you are enjoy the present, right? So this is how important that our relationship to matter. And if you are sincere religious believer or so-called spiritual person, then we all say that everything is permeated by divinity, everything is from God. Then how comes that the divinity permeates everything but just not permeates matter? Is that logical? Of course it's not. So I think we should equally see the divinity and see this light, see the beauty of manifestation, no matter if it's consciousness or matter or something you consider higher. We should really equally see them, not see them in a hierarchy, because they are all important. Just like in Purusha Sukta, there are feet, there are legs, there are arms, there are head. But does it mean that the head is higher, is more important than legs? Without legs, what support us to move? And if you are a scientist, I truly believe that the deeper understanding of matter eventually will lead you to awe, wonder, and gratitude to existence. So no matter you are a scientist or if you are a religious believer or so-called spiritual person, we really should understand what matter is. And now we are going to understand what matter truly is. First of all, let's understand this through our intuitive general understanding. I would say this is a matter. Why? Because first, I can see it by my eyes. and then I can touch it, I can feel it by my hands. And also, it's an object. I'm the subject, this is an object, so I call it a matter. And all of these things just suggest one thing actually. It's saying that this is something that has its own property, has its attributes, and because of that, it confirms that it's matter. But if you say the previous videos I made about quantum physics, especially about observer effect, you understand that why that property is not fixed thing. Property rely on relationships. I'm not suggesting that this thing itself don't have any property, but I'm saying that all the properties are relative. All the properties depends on the relationships. If I'm a human being, I say it in this way, I feel it by my hands in this way. But if I'm another animal, then I wouldn't feel it and say it in the same way. So the property of an object, it really depends on our relationship to it. And now, let us understand matter through scientific definition. Traditional science usually defines matter as anything that has mass and occupies space, consisting of atoms and molecules arranged according to certain patterns. But if we understand this through relational non-duality, then this definition is very, very problematic. Why? Because almost all the key words in this sentence already have, we can easily have wrong pre-assumption, like mass, occupied space, that is volume. So these are all properties. But earlier we already said that properties is not something absolute, it's relative. And then we say atoms and molecules in this sentence. They are not real substance, right? In the earlier two episodes, I made a comparison between substance and anti-substance thinking. And the philosophy and science follow these two directions. You can see the huge differences. And this is why I really found this definition of matter is very problematic, because it can easily lead us to misunderstanding. First, the misunderstanding is that we think properties are fixed thing. Like it mentioned, mass occupies space. It could just let us think, okay, mass is a certain property, is a fixed property, or volume is a fixed property. But in reality, it's not. And also, it mentions atoms and molecules. It can easily lead us to have the substance-based thinking. And that is something we really should transcend, which I explained clearly why we should in the last two episodes. If you are interested, please have a look, my friend. And I know that to many friends, this understanding that there is no fixed property is still confusing. And it's okay, let me explain more clearly. First of all, let's talk about mass. So, is mass a fixed property? I think that we already know that it's not, because through relativity, we know that not only mass, time, space, and all of these things are also relative. It really depends on the condition, the situation. So it's not a fixed property of any object. These are all changing and flowing, depends on the circumstances. And then when we say about the color, when we say an apple is red, that is just the entire relational web that make us receive this object as with the color red. But if we are another animal, we say it differently. It really depends on the relationship as well. And when we talk about the hardness, it feels very real. A thing is hard or soft, but that's because we are human beings. If we are not, we are some very mini animals, and like in some science fictions, and you will know that actually there are so many space between these looking hard objects. And this is how it is, that we cannot really define any object or any matter by certain fixed properties, because that is impossible, because all the properties rely on the relationship, and different subject will have different relationship with different objects, which is the matter. And then about these so-called particles, we already explained so many times before that we know that these so-called particles, as a ball, as a shape, and everything like that, is just a concept. And if we dig deeper, we'll find smaller particles and smaller particles. It will be an infinite progress. And eventually we'll understand that it's just a structure combined by relationships. But the essence itself can never be defined as an object or as a substance, as a particle. It's also impossible. And now some people might ask, okay, if you say properties are relative, then why I say this object, for example, this apple, I say it as red. You also say it as red. Other people also say it as red. And eventually we get to the conclusion this apple has the property of redness. So if it's all relative, then I should say it differently, you should say it differently. We should never be able to get to the same conclusion. Then why we get to the same conclusion? This is actually a very good question. So how we understand this? The answer is actually very simple. Is that even though property is relational, but doesn't mean that relationship cannot be stable. So in another word, why you say something as red and other person say it as red and other people all say it as red, eventually we get to the conclusion that, okay, this item is red. So we jump to the conclusion that, so this thing has redness as its fixed property. Why? Why we all lead to the conclusion? Because me, you, and other people, we all have very stable relationship with that item. We, our hands, our eyes are already very stable structures here. And that item itself is not like changing constantly all the time very visibly. So the item is also very stable there. So when we all look at the same item, we all form very stable relationship with it. And because all of us, our structures are very similar, so the relationship we form with this item are all very similar. And that is why we as human beings, we all see this item as red, but doesn't mean that the redness is its fixed property. It's not, because it depends on our relationship, the relationship between this item and us as human beings. If we are not human beings, we are insects or other animal, or from other space, some other creatures, then how we feel, how we sense the property of this item will be completely different. That's why that in the world of properties is all about relativity. There is no absolute or fixed property of any items. So even though that the world is relational, our experience and matter, how we feel matter, the properties of matter are all relational, is relative, but doesn't mean that it's all just chaotic and there's no pattern can find. There's still universal law, like it will design that how we see this matter as how it looks like. So we still can find a pattern of how we understand this world. It's not clueless. It's not like that. We can still discover the world, understand the world based on our similar experience, which is based on our similar stable relationship to certain objects, to certain matter, and we get to the conclusion that this matter, this object simply have such properties. But as long as we understand underneath that is relativity. We should understand that underneath these properties, it's not something fixed, it was never something fixed. Therefore, from the perspective of relational non-duality, we better not define matter as something that has mass and occupies space. That would be very, very misleading. We better define it as something more fundamental. So, relational non-duality offers a different definition of matter. Matter is a structured form of existence that emerges when a network of relationships reaches a sufficient degree of stability, continuity, and recognizability. It is not an entity existing outside of relationships, but a condensed expression of relationships themselves. So in another word, matter is the result of relationships becoming highly stable. And from now on, you are going to hear me talk about this analogy of vortex a lot. Because it's just like a vortex in a river. The water is constantly changing, yet the vortex appears to be a distinct thing. However, in reality, it is not a static object, but a stable flow. It is a persistent pattern within continuous change. And about these flowing things, later on we'll discuss a lot, and not in this episode, not yet. So, this does not mean that matter is unreal, nor does it mean that matter is merely a projection of consciousness. No, it's not. Rather, matter is real, but its reality is not that of an independent substance. It is the reality of stable relationships. So a stone is real, a body is real, a planet is real, the universe is real. Yet, they are more like vortex, temporary forms that arise through the manifestation of relationships. They are never absolutely isolated things. They exist through the coming together of countless interdependent relations. That's also why they don't have fixed properties. It all depends on relationships, so where is the fixed properties? So when relationships become sufficiently stable, material structures emerge. Atoms, molecules, stars, planets, and minerals are all examples of matter taking form. They are not separate from the relational network that gives rise to them. They are the visible expressions of its ongoing organization. And this is how relational non-duality understands matter. And seriously, it's not complicated. It's very simple. It's just about the mindset, the way of thinking. If you watch the episodes I made before, and you can change, you can turn and adjust your thinking from substance-based thinking to relational thinking, then this is actually so obvious. It's not complicated, it's not difficult to understand, and I know that you might still have a lot of doubts, confusion, and questions about this topic. But it's okay because this is just the first episode we made on the topic of the manifestation of matter. Later on, we will discuss all the aspects about this topic, and we will cover all the little details. So no need to worry, my friend. About what we discussed in this episode, if you have any doubts, questions, and you are always welcome to leave comments, and we can have discussion, we can have communication, and it's always been my honor to have this channel, to run this channel, and I'm really glad that you gave me this opportunity to express, to share, to resonate with you. Thank you, my friends. If you find this channel inspiring, please consider subscribe, and also you are always welcome to support me through Buy Me a Coffee link. Thank you so much. And I will see you in the next episode. Let's start this journey and continue this journey together.